Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. Today, I am very happy to be speaking with Lou Adler. A little bit about Lou before we get started in on our conversation. Lou is the CEO and founder of Performance-Based Hiring Learning Systems, which is a consulting and training firm helping recruiters and hiring managers around the world source, interview, and hire the strongest and most diverse talent. He's also an author. He has written Hire with Your Head, The Essential Guide for Hiring and Getting Hired, and he also has created the lynda.com performance-based hiring video training program. And with that, I would like to say welcome to you, Lou.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Siobhan. Look forward to chatting with you today.
So it should come as no surprise to you or to our audience that we're going to talk to you about hiring. Seemed like the thing to do with you.
I'm glad it wasn't about Laker basketball, because that would have been a very short conversation.
So we brought you on today to talk a little bit about hiring. We have just gone through a year that was known as the Great Resignation, et cetera, et cetera. In spite of the fact that things may be slowing down, we still have, I believe at the last JOLTS report, it was 10.1 million open positions still waiting to be filled. So hiring is still very much top of mind. But one of the things that we really want to focus on is where companies get hiring wrong. And I imagine you have a few thoughts about that.
Well, the issue is, yes, how long do we want to talk about that? I'm going to go back to 1995 or so. And there was, maybe it was even 1997, but McKinsey put a book out or a study out called The War for Talent. And then Newsweek and a bunch of people picked up and said, hey, you know, we're going to win the war for talent. This is 1996, 97, because we got job boards, because we got applicant tracking systems, because we're bringing more recruiters into the play. We don't need outside recruiters, and the war for talent is going to be won. And in the last 25, 30 years, maybe $500 billion has been spent on solving that problem. But I don't think much has changed. We still post boring jobs. We still have turnover. We still have quiet resignation. We still have quiet quitting. So the fundamental problems haven't changed at all. We've just masked it with spending a lot of money and putting technology around it and thinking, hey, getting a new job is easy and let's solve the problem and it'll go away. Now, not going to go away. So I've been a cynic for 30 plus years and I'm still a cynic. It's a big challenge, and yet the solution is right standing in your face and people don't even want to listen to it. Sorry for that short, cynical response. But
that's quite all right. That's quite all right. We did not bring you here because you had a lack of opinions. So we're happy that you've got them.
I did grow up in New York. So, you know, you grow up in the Bronx, you kind of you have to be opinionated to survive third grade. So that's what it is.
So let's start in. You and I had a chance to chat a little bit before this conversation, and you sort of pinpointed three big areas where companies are getting this wrong. And I'm going to just start with one of them that you pinpointed, which was not properly vetting candidates, which was sort of related to letting the good candidates go early. Can you talk a little bit about that problem?
Well, that's actually, that's a foundation. I don't even know that's the problem. That's the tip of the iceberg. Mm-hmm. In many cases, if you write a boring job posting that lists skills, experience, and competencies, nobody good is going to respond to it. So you've only seeing people who have a desire to take a ill-defined lateral transfer for the most money. So at the root cause of it, that's the problem. The idea is now all the people who could actually do the real work that was required for that job don't even get considered. So the idea is that how we write job descriptions is at the root cause of the whole problem. So I always, when I take assignments, I just, hey, what do you want the person to do? Launch a new product, design a product, or design a circuit, turn around a system, build a team of sales reps, whatever it is. People do stuff. And the issue is, if you can find people can do that stuff, you now have opened the pool to everybody who could do that work. So I think it goes down to the entire process is flawed. And yet, so now what it comes down to, hey, if we're looking for people who have this narrow scope of skills or niche stuff, of course you're not going to be seeing the right candidates. And if you assess them on stuff that is biased and impersonal or silly, well, then you're not going to, you make the problem even worse. So it was a very simple statement to say we're not vetting the right people, but the solution to that is pretty huge solution. And people don't want to do that. They kind of, let's just post ads and see if we get anybody any good who are willing to take a lateral transfer. So on the face of it, you're never going to get there. It's just chasing your tail.
Okay, so let's back up a bit, because you've
Yeah,
already rolling it back a little bit. You've already mentioned boring job descriptions a couple of times, and so I think we're going to have to kind of go in a different order and talk with this big one, which is the job description. So talk to me a little bit about why you're pinpointing that as this critical area.
Okay, so let me go back. So my quick background is I became a recruiter in 1978. I'm my own personal recruiter. I started placing people in jobs. But 10 years prior to that, I had a background in manufacturing, financial planning, cost accounting, and engineering. So that's my background. I only became a recruiter because I didn't like the group president. He and I argued, and I just quit and said, screw you. And I quit 4 times in a year. But when I became a recruiter, because I had a background in manufacturing, I really kind of knew a lot of the jobs that I handled, and particularly the first one. First one was for a plant manager in an automotive manufacturing company, and I knew the president. And I gave like 6 months notice, so it was not. So as soon as I became a recruiter, I had assignments. But my first assignment, the president gave me a list of, I need someone who's got 10 years experience, got an engineering degree, has got a background in this, has to have automotive background, has to have forging and metal. It was all the kind of stuff you would have on a typical job description. And I looked at this person, Mike, whom I knew. I said, Mike, this is not a job description. This is a person description. A job doesn't have skills, experience, and competencies. Let's put the person description in the parking lot. What do you want the person to do? And he said, no one's ever asked me that question. He said, I want someone to turn around a plant. And I said, fine, let's go through the plant. And I had been through so many plants, it was comfortable. And we spent an hour going through the plant. We found half a dozen real major problems. I said, if somebody solves those problems, they'll turn around the plant and be profitable, from unprofitable to profitable. I have never used the job description listing skills, experience, and competencies since then. Just last week, I'm working with a big and I don't do search, but I help companies hire people. Working with a big agricultural group, has $45 billion in product. They're looking for someone to run a cooperative marketing organization, CEO, big time job. Had a list of skills, experience, and competencies. This is last week. I said, this is not a job description, it's a person description. What do you want the person to do? And it was turnaround. It doesn't matter, but it was a marketing challenge of what they had to do to turn around industry and advertising. The point is, that's the problem with job descriptions. If you want to hire a great person, you have to have a great job, not a laundry list of skills, experience, and competencies. So if you don't solve that problem, all you're doing is hiring or attracting people who are willing to take an ill-defined lateral transfer. And that's not the best pool of best candidates. The best candidates are more discriminating. So at the root cause, that is the fundamental problem, not defining the work. And obviously a host of other problems associated with that, but that's the root cause of hiring problems today.
Can I ask, though, because there's a growing school of thought that says that jobs are becoming more porous, and that a lot of jobs are no longer going to remain the same, that you have to be more agile. People are introducing talent marketplaces where they're going to be moving from one task to another in their work. Does this still apply in a case like that?
Let's say this. As far as I'm concerned, coming up with an agile workforce basically kind of puts the workforce into 2 categories. People who are interested in gig type work, which you're defining there, willing to change jobs quickly, using a set of skills and applying those in another area. There's another group of people in the career market. Career market want to take a job, want to learn new skills, want to become managers, project managers, develop teams, grow into bigger levels. So I think it works. And this is where people think, hey, everyone is one size fits all. Well, that may be true, but some of the best people don't want to just move from job to job, but they might want to learn new skills in that job. So I think you kind of have to look at it that way. What market are you trying to attract? Are you just trying to fill the job with a solid person, or you're trying to get someone who's really going to improve and excel and grow, both make the job bigger and make themselves bigger? So I think you have to kind of look at it. What's your strategy for opening up that pool of jobs? And is that criteria the appropriate one? And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but you just got to look at what you're trying to accomplish as the end game before you make a conclusion that this is the way the world of work is going to transpire.
Mm-hmm. So when companies, and I'm going to go back because I love the boring job descriptions, because I think we've all read a fair number of them. Say a company has actually figured out what the job is. In the case of the manufacturer, they need to turn this manufacturing plant around. Now, that would be a really dynamic subject line. Is there any other mistakes that they might be making in that job description that would make it boring, that would potentially not appeal to somebody, that potentially wouldn't make the value clear to the
Well, I think the bigger issue, and it's a critical question, is that what is a job posting?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a document to screen people, or is it a document to attract people? Is it a marketing piece? If it's marketing, you want to attract good people or competent people, irrespective of whether you're going to fill a job or offer a career. If it's a marketing piece, then why would you list the skills, experience, and competencies? You would list, hey, here's what we're looking for: people who can do this work, launch a new product line, turn around a company, develop an accounting system, use business intelligence to analyze where we're going in the future. Those are the things that attract people. So if it's a marketing piece, you wouldn't list the skills, experience, and competencies. And there's no law that you have to. I've talked to the number one labor attorney in the country. Number one guy. He's been in front of the Supreme Court. I've talked to him. He wrote a white paper in my book, Hire with Your Head, of how to write job descriptions. He said, I don't know why HR writes boring job descriptions. This is a lawyer speaking. He said that causes problems because there's a lot of good people, diverse candidates who can actually do that work, who have a different mix of skills and experiences. And there's very few good people who are looking for a lateral transfer that's ill-defined. Mm-hmm. So even if you're talking about an agile workforce where you're skills dependent, good people who are skills capable want to do exciting work with their skills. So you have to use it as a marketing piece. Hey, use your 6 years experience in business intelligence and help us create a dashboard that's going to change how we manage our company. Oh, that's a kind of a cool message. But I think people get the idea is that the job posting is a marketing tool, and I don't know why HR doesn't use it as a marketing tool. That's fundamentally what it is. I think a good job posting with good marketing, you tell stories, you're going to excite the right kind of people, irrespective of the role that the person's going to play.
And I think that is such a, it's a much more equal, putting everybody on equal footing, basically, because a lot of times when people are listing job descriptions, they're seeing this as an advertisement for the company to get this person in, as opposed to an advertisement for this company to attract this person, to make them excited about working there, to make them want to go there. Mm-hmm. But you said something in that last bit about how writing those kind of job descriptions could actually, in theory, open up these jobs to a wider pool of people who potentially would not have otherwise applied. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about, removing the bias from job descriptions. That was another area that you had raised when we spoke before. How does this kind of process, how does this writing of job descriptions do that?
Well, I think the issue is when you define work as a series of performance objectives. You have to build a team of accountants to launch a new international reporting system. You have to collaborate with marketing and engineering to develop a new product we're going to be launching over the next 12 months. It's an outcome. The issue is that if someone can do that work, it doesn't matter if they're black or white, old or yellow, 10 years experience or 3 years. They have to, the requirement is they have to be able to do that work. And I think so now it's everybody, even if they have a different mix of skills and experience, non-traditional candidates now can say, hey, your threshold is the ability to do that work. And I think so that opens a talent pool to everybody. I literally got lots of pushback on that concept 25 years ago. So I've been talking to lawyers ever since. Hey, is this legal and is this proper? And people said, of course it's legal and proper. Objective criteria is, in fact, having the ability to launch a new product line or come up with a new reporting system or design a circuit under tough time pressures. That's objective criteria. It's more objective than 10 years experience in a double E degree or a marketing degree from a top school. It might sound objective, the criteria we have, but that's actually subjective. Who came up with it? It doesn't predict on the job performance. No, the proof is they have to be able to do that work. That's the criteria. And I tell my clients, I will never compromise on the work. You just give me a little bit of relief on the mix of skills and experiences. And that changes and levels the playing field. Everybody who is possibly qualified to do that work can be considered for doing that work.
So how do you establish that the people are capable to do those work? I mean, if you're removing the experience factor, which in theory is showing like some competency in that area if they had a equivalent job title, how are you talking about giving like a work-related test in advance, or what sort of methods do you advocate for?
So let's assume that you were my candidate, Siobhan, for the plant manager. Hey, Siobhan, I got an automotive plant that's kind of running out of control. We're making lots of products, a lot of scrap, too costly for us to be in business. We got to turn this place around in 18 months. Can you tell me about something you've accomplished that's related to that? And I'll spend a half hour describing what you've done. Hey, Yvonne, we got to put a new business intelligence report together using this tool and this tool on this kind of an ERP platform. Walk me through something you've accomplished that's most comparable to that.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to launch this product in 12 months, and we're 6 months behind. But if you get this job, Siobhan, you're going to have to lead this effort under a very tight time frame. Walk me through something you've accomplished that's most related to that. So I really once I know the job, I just dig into the candidate's accomplishments related to that job. And once I do this for 2 or 3 of the big accomplishments, I know if you're in the game or not. I mean, there's more to it than that, but that's the key. Digging deep into the candidate's accomplishments in comparison to the real job. Not into some hypothetical situation or, hey, you got 10 years, that's pretty good. Well, how'd you do in school? Not that that's unimportant, but it's not directly related to your ability and motivation to do that work.
Can I ask, and this is just kind of curiosity on my part, if somebody is at the early part of their career, where do they pull that kind of experience from? Where do they talk about the school?
You wouldn't be turning around.
Yeah, they wouldn't be turning a plant around. I'm not going to be turning a plant around either. Let me tell you.
They might have to be involved in a software role. They might be involved in taking a bit of code and transforming it or rewriting it or refactoring to put on another platform. So I would say, hey, walk me through, you ever done this kind of stuff? How familiar are this? How would you do this? What have you done that's most related? So I'd be looking for comparable kinds of things that would indicate success in the job. But once I know the job, I'm still going to be looking for things, and it might not be a total project, but I'm looking for pieces of things that would indicate, well, this person can handle that kind of job.
I want to ask you about something that hasn't come up in our previous conversation or in this conversation. And I would say it's probably one of the more common complaints that I have heard about hiring processes. I'm assuming you have heard it as well. And that is the length of time that hiring can go on for a lot of companies. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think that potentially part of the thing that's slowing down is not having these specific job descriptions, or what would you say?
Well, I think it's a yes. And let's say the answer is yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
When you think about it, hiring a stranger is a risky business. Hiring a stranger using criteria that is subjective at best, clearly biased, emotionally involved. So you've just said, so you're a hiring manager. I've got to hire somebody. That's a risky thing. It's much easier to say no. So now you go to the HR department, send me more candidates, send me more candidates. But again, why does it take so long? It's because we're using criteria that doesn't predict success. So managers in their mindset, I got to find somebody just like this. So they spend extra time looking for something that doesn't exist. So when I first take that assignment, I've been a recruiter. I've placed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. I had the same problem. I've minimized it by saying, no, Siobhan, this is the criteria we'll use. I'm going to show you a couple of candidates, and if you don't like them, we're going to figure out what's wrong here. So I focus on not only the beginning of what's the job, but also the process to it, and even the process post-hire. But you got to recognize that the reason we have this delay is that we don't really know the job. Hiring managers are going after the wrong people. The recruiters are. So they're not seeing enough good people. So again, it's a flawed process of let's hope we get a good person to apply. I'm going to wait till I get the right person. But the right person was probably sitting there looking at your job posting and thought it was boring and never applied. So I mean, if you kind of think about it from a process standpoint, everything leads to inefficiency, ineffectiveness, and too much time and too much cost involved. And yet people still do it. And that's why I say they spent $500 billion trying to solve the problem. And the problems that you raise are the same problems I heard 30 years ago, maybe 35 years ago. So, and there's a simple solution: start defining the work and start looking for people who are motivated and competent to do that work, and spend all your money doing that. Looking for people who, and hope a good person applies. Let's find good people and convince them this is the right career move.
Do you think that there is a perfect candidate out there for every job?
Yes.
Interesting.
No question. And I think there's a lot of great.
There was no doubt. Yeah. So how can you be so sure? I'm really curious.
The thing is, you asked a pretty open-ended question.
I know, I did. It was a yes or no question, which is a bad thing on a journalistic point of view.
But the point is, once you know the work, now all of a sudden I've got to convince, hey, Yvonne, would you be open to explore a situation if it was clearly superior to what you're doing today? Now you're not looking, you're happy where you are. How would you say no to that? Would you be open to explore something that's clearly superior to you today? Now, let's assume I got your name through someone you worked with 2 years ago. Hey, Yvonne, I was just talking to Mary Smith. She indicated you're a remarkable person to lead this new marketing team. She said you weren't necessarily interested in changing jobs. But let me just ask you this open question. Would you be open to at least explore it if it clearly was a strong career move for you? And you would obviously, and I've obviously got to convince you that it's the right job. But before I even called you, I looked for people who would see the job as a good career move. I didn't hope that you would do it. I found you. I mean, that's what I do as a recruiter. I find people who would see this job as a career move before I reach out. It's like it's in sales. Good salespeople don't just call everybody in the world. They pre-qualify their customers. Well, you're a customer. You're a potential candidate for this job. I've got to pre-qualify you. So yes, I think there is a situation. But if I just have a list of skills, duties, and responsibilities, it's a random dart throw. And I'm not sure I could find someone. When I know the job, unless it's such an odd job, then I tell the company, hey, we got to change. This isn't going to happen. You're not going to hire someone like this. They don't exist. We got to change the rules. We got to change the scope or redesign the work. So a lot of work that I do is on that order. But once I think a job is reasonable, let's go find somebody. There are people around that you can find them.
And what about the people who are coming in? In cases like that, you would just be vetting them with those very specific questions, like you were asking me earlier about turning the plant around. So I'm wondering.
By the way, does that job sound interesting to you?
No, I'm definitely not. I'm not going into any plants. I'm not. I just every time somebody talks about like a manufacturing line, I think of Lucille Ball. No, thank you. So when we're talking about this, I'm wondering, because throughout it, you've kind of been talking about this as much as a sales and a marketing opportunity for the company as anything else. And do you think that a lot of companies actually view hiring in that way? Do they see it as a broader sales opportunity for the company, or do you think they're just so inward focusing that that could be a problem?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think that's the problem. HR, in many ways, should HR lead recruiting? Yes and no. I think there's, but if I kind of look at it from a different kind of perspective, ask HR folks, is the demand for that person greater than the supply for that person? And this was about a year or so ago. I give you a quick story. I went on LinkedIn. It was for a business intelligence analyst in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I just said, okay, how many companies are looking for that person? And it was like 7,500. Man, it was a lot of jobs with business intelligence. Then I looked on LinkedIn for how many people on LinkedIn actually could have had the rough criteria to do that. And it was about a third. So here was 7,500 people had open jobs in business intelligence and less than 2,500. Well, nobody's going to apply to that job. So when the demand for talent is greater than supply, you can't assume that you're going to weed out the weak. You got to attract people. So now I can go, okay, who would see this job as a career move? Now it's a different game. So to me, that's a sales and marketing function. Recruiters, and I talked to some recruiters this morning. Some of them are really good sales and marketing people. They get frustrated because hiring managers don't want to, because they're the real buyers. They don't want to get interested in it. They just go, I want someone with 10 years, 15 years, this background, this school, this religion, this age, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of barriers to break down, but fundamentally, it is hiring great people is a sales and marketing function. And hiring managers are the drivers of that. And unfortunately, they don't, and HR has got to be the implementers of that. So you got this clash of a lot of ideas here.
Yeah, and it also sounds as if the responsibilities aren't necessarily clearly laid out for everyone. So if people start viewing it as a marketing arm of the company, then communications obviously would become much more important, and that the hiring manager and anybody speaking to the person would be having a stronger role in not only finding out the fit, but also selling the company at the same time, because you want to be exciting that person. And communications is where a lot of people, I think, we see these candidates who are ghosting companies and things like that. I believe that probably 9 times out of 10, it's probably a communications issue.
That's certainly part of it. And I think a lack of understanding of the real job on both parts. Why? Then it just becomes a money issue as opposed to a career issue.
Yeah. So if you were, okay, you've been doing this for a while. We're not going to say how long, but you started, you said your first story was 1997. That's the first story that you started off with this conversation. Here we are, 2022. Has anything changed in that time? I mean, we've had the ability to do the remote hiring in the last few years. Has anything that you've seen in this period changed?
I think fundamentally, what's fundamentally changed is remote work. There's no question that has been pivotal, and that's going to be part of it. And I think we've learned how to attract and assess people remotely, and we've gotten better at it. Has anything happened at the process level to make it more effective? I don't think so. I think we've added ATS systems. We've added artificial intelligence. We have new job boards coming out every single day of the week. We bring in recruiters who have no experience whatsoever and expected to hire people who are capable and competent and discriminating. That's certainly a challenge. And I think somebody asked me, maybe it was last week when we chatted about artificial intelligence. We're spending hundreds of $millions on artificial intelligence. And when you look at it, they're focusing on the wrong thing. They're focusing on candidates who apply, which are not necessarily the best people, and they're matching that to who gets hired. Well, that's not the answer. The answer is who's great after they get hired. And many times it's not the people who apply. It's some referral or some network of internal promotion. So when you look at the data being evaluated to make a conclusion, and the conclusion is people being hired, is, to me, you can be great at that and you're still not going to get the right decision. You're just going to be more efficient doing the wrong things. So to my mind, I'm very, very cynical about that. And I made the same case, Siobhan, 25, 30 years. I've been kicked out of more conferences making that case. And quickly, even job boards, they make money selling postings. They like turnover. They like quiet quitting. They like the great resignation. They make more money. It's about selling job postings. And companies, I gotta post jobs, gotta post jobs. So, it's kind of like you're feeding your worst enemy and complaining why. Well, that's why.
But you've referred to referrals. You've referred to, somebody who hiring. Are there limitations to that? I mean, clearly there are. How can you be aware of all of the talent that's out there within an immediate circle?
Well, let's assume that I worked at a company with 1,000 people. Now, I don't know everybody of those 1,000 people. And typically, employee referral program, just who do you know who's looking? Yeah, but the idea is that if I work at a company, let's assume you're a director of marketing at my organization, and I've never met you before. But if I connect with you on LinkedIn, I can actually search on your connections, which is a pretty powerful tool. I can search on your connections. When you think about LinkedIn, it's a network of 800 million people, not a database. So most recruiters just go, who could do this job? I say, no, Siobhan is a director. I know she worked at XYZ publishing company 2 years ago. She looks like she probably could know someone. So I call you up. Siobhan, can we network? Can we connect on LinkedIn? Of course we would. I then call you up 2 days later. Hey, Siobhan, there's 3 people I think who look pretty cool. What do you think about them? Oh, they're really good. Well, this one's really good, but they're not looking. I said, fine, can I use your name? So now I call that person up and say, I just talked to Siobhan Fagan. She said you were pretty remarkable in this area. Would you be open to explore a situation? So the area is, yes, you can develop an instant network using tools today. That has fundamentally changed. LinkedIn is a game changer, but people don't use it properly, as far as I'm concerned. It's phenomenal. But you have to spend more time with fewer people. And that's really the issue. People say, we don't have time to do it. Yes, you have time. You just don't talk to all the people who aren't qualified. You just only pre-qualify people, just like a sales rep. They don't call every possible customer. They narrow it down and say, okay, I got to call people who are possible buyers of my product and convince them to have a meeting. Well, that's what I'm trying to do in recruiting. It's an identical process, and people just don't use the tools properly. So yes, I think there's tools there. You still got to be a good recruiter. You still got to pick up the phone and you got to talk to people and recognize you're changing someone's life if they change jobs. But if they do it properly, you put them on a better career path.
Well, Lou, I didn't expect us to be talking about connecting on LinkedIn as we're connecting on LinkedIn, but that was a very appropriate ending to our conversation. I suspect that we could probably go on for a while longer because I've got a lot of questions and you've got a lot of answers, but I want to thank you.
More answers than questions, right?
I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing all of your thoughts about hiring.
Delighted to be with you. Thank you very much for inviting me, Siobhan.